Hello everybody, welcome back to MSI 2016 here in Shanghai, China. I'm Devin Pyrotechnics Young, sharing the desk for the last 3 games of the day with Joshua Jet Leesman. How's it going, man?
It's going really well. We've had such an insane tournament right now. Everything does feel like it's upside down.
Absolutely.
And now we get to start the second half of the round robin where normally things start to actually equalize back to expectations, but it's been so weird, I don't even know if that's possible.
There's not a whole lot of normal stuff. I mean, maybe the closest we come is the game we just had, but even that is kind of up in the air at this point. Everyone's showing up. Wildcard team doing incredibly well against G2 eSports there, and I'm really looking forward to see how the Flash Wolves take it to the Rift.
Yeah, I can't wait for this next game, right? SKT losing 3 games in a row in the group stage. Flash Wolves also being tied for 2nd place in the tournament right here. Factoring head-to-head, it would actually be 3rd place, but it's been absolutely nuts. Yeah,
so this is the rematches, as you mentioned. This is actually the start of the rematches going back to yesterday's match against SKT. Flash Wolves taking that victory, and the 3 matches in a row that SKT have actually lost. That hasn't happened, by the way, for about a year and a half. Not since you have to go back to 2014 Worlds qualifiers, which they didn't make. That's 193 competitive games. It's nuts.
Yeah, 615 days since that was possible. And they play most of their games in the most competitive region in the world in Korea. So here at MSI, it goes to show you the level of competition that is here. And also you have to wonder whether or not SKT is a little bit tilted. And I hate to use that word because it's Faker we're talking about here, but we have to look at what happened to him yesterday, where he brought armor penetration on Azir 2 games in a row. And then we look today where he didn't skill Ultimate on LeBlanc at level 6, but instead skilled Chains. And he's lost both sides of the Azir-LeBlanc matchup right now. Obviously, jungle has a huge sway in those matchups, but these are things that you would not think possible with Faker, but they've all happened in the last 2 days.
That's absolutely true, but on the other side of the Rift, you have to look at Flash Wolves. They opened today with a loss against RNG, really just outdrafted.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. They picked the Zed, and it was into a host of counters, and were unable to snowball the game incredibly quickly. And one thing that also is happening this tournament is the Nidalee has been a very high priority for teams, but has often been outscaled by the Kindred or the Graves come team fighting, because it's really just been all about team fights. The macro play we expected coming into here hasn't actually played out to many victories, and it's been about getting your mid laner huge and winning team fights. Yeah,
the Nidalee really seems like it's been more of a trap. Yes, it has been played well by a lot of the junglers, but not all of them, especially not on the SKT side. Blank has been having a whole host of trouble, but the jungle matchup isn't as interesting as this mid lane matchup. You've got to think Maple has looked so incredible, and he's going to have the chance to get the repeat matchup versus Faker.
Yeah, he's going to have to continue on what he did yesterday, where he was able to beat Faker in CS and slowly starve them out in the game. As far as the games that SKT has lost, the one they lost to the Flash Wolves was probably the most one-sided. It was the early to mid to late. It wasn't any kind of messing around within that. And they're going to be able to do that again if they're going to need to be able to do that again if they want to continue to hand losses to the defending world champions.
Well, we'll see if they can. And on the other side, we want to hear from Faker. He's going to, before we get into picks and bans, tell us how he thinks LMS stands as a region.
LMS가 좀 저희 그 대회할 때마다 좀 많이 주목을 못 받는 느낌은 있는데, 그래도 할 때마다 언제나 상위권 성적을 내는 팀이 그 지역이기 때문에 플래시 올브즈도 이번 대회에서 좀 좋은 성적을 낼 수 있을까라는 궁금증이 들긴 하네요.
A lot of questions from Faker, but we're going to just get right into the starting lineups. Let's take a look at the blue side of the Rift. That is, of course, going to be the Flash Wolves from the LMS. It means in the top lane, we've got D, if you asked Officio, Karza in the jungle, Maple in mid, NL the AD carry, and Sword Art on support with their coach, Fluid Wind.
Yeah, Stake is also their coach, but Fluid Wind does the picks and bans for them there. And then on the other side, it is Korea's SKT looking to break their 3-game MSI losing streak. Duke in the top lane, Blank in the jungle, Faker the mid laner, of course, Bang the AD carry, Wolf support with Coach Koma, who's really going to have to work his coaching into this one, get them back on the right track, get them playing team compositions that can capitalize on their advantages, because they've been playing some SKT-like team comps, but they haven't actually been able to utilize them the way SKT does.
They really got to find that magic, and a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes coming out of a lot of the players, too. It is very, very unusual to see that. I did not expect to wake up and say, okay, SKT lost 3 games in a row, and now where do we go? We're going to have to find out as we get into picks and bans. Sivir taken off the board to start.
Yeah, and as we move into this pick and ban phase, we do have to focus a little bit on the jungle picks, because Blank has been one of the largest underperformers for SKT. Multiple Nidalee games without large impact, and then in their loss today against COG, had a lot of poor plays on Kindred. And a lot of people are calling for him to be subbed out, because the substitute that SKT brought to MSI is Bengi, who was the world champion last year. But you have to keep in mind that Bengi was benched because he doesn't play the meta champions. in a team comp like this, though, where you see Kindred and Nidalee banned, you could actually fit Bengi back in there, but that's reading way too much into it. They're going with Blank. They're going to try and turn it around. It's
a question going forward now. What does SKT ban for their next one? They did take the Nidalee away, so they're not even going to let themselves be lured into that particular trap. But what do they focus? It's the LeBlanc that's banned away. They don't want to deal with that matchup, but Maple's still got plenty that he can play.
Yeah, Maple's Gangplank is amazing. His Zed was shut down, and at least they're trying to stop Flash Wolves from being able to play too aggressive. What Clement was saying on the desk was that Flash Wolves' coach told them to be so aggressive against SKT because that was the way they were going to be able to beat SKT, and they took a lot of risks. They prioritized Dragon, and they were able to play well enough to shut them down.
For the Flash Wolves, they do ban away the Tom Kench, the not always and not often seen support, but we do know Wolf has liked to pick it up, and he was denying a lot of kills in the games that he's played on it. What do SKT ban for their last, though? It looks like it's going to be the Rise, so a lot of mid lane and a lot of jungle pinched.
Absolutely. It's kind of crazy to see SKT ban Rise when coming into the tournament it felt like Faker was just going to either pick Rise or pick Cassiopeia against the Rise, but the SKT aura definitely feels like it is diminished greatly when you see two mid lane bans coming from the team that has Faker. So that's a lot of respect being shown to Maple and shows a large pivot in the strategy for SKT.
Yeah, but it do leave up a couple of things, though. Alistar being hovered right now for Flash Wolf. Sword Art has been making a lot of plays just across the board. You really can't take too much away from them. He's only gotten the Alistar twice, and they've resulted in a winner, rather. I want to see if that's what they lock in first, because then you leave up like the Azir, right? And then it starts to trade over the power picks when you don't have so many champion pools pinched.
Exactly, like you would want Maple to play the Zed against you and Azir, but if you comp enough against the Zed, you can still have ways to shut it down. I think the Alistar is the right first pick for this. If we look at SKT's losses yesterday, both of them were to an Alistar support. Sword Art and Mata both had amazing initiations against SKT in the late game that caused that, but it's not to say they don't give away a lot. I love those first two picks from SKT here.
No hesitation, absolutely. Instantly lock the Maokai and the Graves, and then over back to the LMS team. But there's a lot that can be picked here for Maple, despite the fact that they did have a couple of mid lane bans. He's hovering the Azir right now. We know he has a ridiculous Gangplank, but they don't have to pick it now. That's so brilliant. Yeah,
what I really loved about Flash was right there is they hovered the Azir and the Vel'Koz, because Vel'Koz has been picked sparingly by certain mid laners as a counter to an Azir, as far as not like an assassin matchup, but just a control mage team fighting matchup. So Flash Wolves may be trying to get in their heads a little bit if they end up locking this Azir, saying, yeah, we know you're going to bring a Vel'Koz, and Maple might be throwing out a bit of a dare.
It's been a lot of mental state alteration. I mean, SKT is the team. No, I know you hate that phrase, Tilt, but it's a viable explanation at this point. How else can you explain the defending champions losing 3 games, and now the Ezreal, the Azir is locked in. Lucian was still available, but NL, he loves those global ults, and man, do I love to watch him shoot him.
Yeah, his Ezreal has been on point. It was his most played champion throughout the regular season and was forcing enemy teams to pick it away from him in the LMS playoffs, but he's been able to get his hands on it here. And they do go with that Azir, so now we get to see if Faker does decide to go for the Vel'Koz against it, or if he's got something else in mind.
Yeah, well, Faker has been adamant about saying, hey, I can play just about every champion, but the Azir was actually not that impressive when he played it, and he's been in trouble on the sides of the matchup against the LeBlanc as well. Yeah. One of the reasons they might have banned that one away.
So this is a hot debate about Faker's Azir, because when he played those 2 games, he got tremendously camped by the opponent jungler.
That is very true.
And Blank did not seem to have his back very well, and it was just continuous focus down onto Faker. Here, though, he's going for the echo of this matchup with the Maokai already being locked in.
Yeah, so that will be what we get to see. That was played against them, of course, by G2, but it didn't result in much success for that team. On the other side, have a little bit of time to decide what the Flash Wolves want to round out their composition with.
They already have their bottom lane and their mid lane picked. They know the opponent top lane and jungle. And the Poppy would probably be the logical choice since SKT has taken the 2 premier top laners above Poppy. I'd say the Maokai S tier and the Echo has proven to be, in a lot of ways, the second best top laner in the meta right now. So I like it when SKT is picking compositions like that. And if they really want to get more classic like they did in the playoffs, they'd pick a support Trundle at the bottom here. It would just be they'd probably actually be able to get away with it and lane against the Alistar as well.
Yeah, and the Elise is locked in for Karza, so he'll be roaming around trying to find himself some picks, and I would not be surprised to see the mid lane targeted, despite the fact that Faker can and possibly will get fairly tanky despite the likely AP build. Last pick over to SKT.
Yeah, they could obviously go with Braum. Either melee support is very respectable, and this is looking like a very good SKT team composition as far as their ability to team fight. As long as Faker can survive the laning phase as much as possible, it's just full of frontline and would try and enable Bang to carry.
But is it a bit worrying to see that that's what they've been pushed towards? Is this something that is maybe not optimal against the rest of the teams?
I think it's fine. Duke was 10-2 in regular season and playoffs on the Maokai. 5-1 in the playoffs alone for
They had to band away a lot from
SKT.
him, actually.
Exactly, it gets banned away a lot. So the fact that they're able to get that, and then they just stack frontline together with Maokai and Braum, makes it really hard for Flash Wolves to get through them. Flash Wolves might be looking for a little bit of flanking there, especially with the Elise. So, like the draft from SKT overall.
Yeah, we'll have to see if it works out for them. They've got to pull themselves out of the losing skid, but Flash Wolves, they want to go 2-0 against the defending world champions, and they have just shown up huge. Despite the loss today already, they have looked quite good.
Yeah, Flash Wolves has definitely showed up. The main thing they wanted to do is prove that they deserve a Pool 1 seed, which means top 4 here. They're in position to be able to do that after the first set of round robins. They finished 3-2. They beat SKT. And what kind of story would it be if SKT lost their 4th game in a row and gets 2-0'd by Flash Wolves in the group stage? That would push SKT to 2-4. That's what's on the line right now.
We'd have to push real far back in the stats to find when that happened. Now, if you guys think that the Flash Wolves can take another victory against SKT here, tweet us at LoL eSports, #FWWin. Or if the defending world champs will pick up one to tie their head-to-head, it is going to be #SKTWin. And of course, speaking of who you guys think, who owns the Rift now has changed because we have swapped ourselves over into the rematches. And because the LMS Flash Wolves own that head-to-head currently, they also own the Rift. So it's going to be nice and teal for the rest of this game.
You have to get that stage color.
There we
really
go.
Awesome 6th stage we have here at MSI from the LMS. The logo gets popped up right there. And I'm just so excited for this game because now the teams have been able to play against each other. And so much of the time, especially from the regional leagues where SKT and Flash Wolves come from, where they play best of 3s and at one point best of 2s, they need to be able to adapt from game to game. And obviously, the first game was yesterday, so it's much longer than the 20 minutes you have to prep beforehand, but you still get to see the adaptations that the teams make.
You absolutely do, and we're already seeing a bit of that in those pick and bans, of course. Didn't mention the summoner spells as much, but no-brainer here, the double teleports both taken. And as Maple not under a whole lot of immediate threat from Faker, doesn't think he needs any defensive summoners for that one. NL is a little bit caught here, and Bang and Wolf are going to punish him. They actually managed to proc the stun, and NL's going to have to early back after Flash.
Yeah, so NL just not getting to the spot quickly enough. I didn't quite catch how Wolf got the angle there for his Q, but we've seen a lot of creative level 1s from RNG and CLG. It's nice to see SKT get something for themselves as well. Having the flash down on NL will definitely hopefully allow Bang to farm a little bit longer in that laning phase.
You would think. Flash Wolves, though, they're going for a little invade of their own, but they don't want to get collapsed on and not going to commit to it too hard. Bang here looks to put a little bit of deep vision in. Should be looking for the 2v2, though.
Yeah.
A little bit late if they wanted to swap back, and that's a pretty strong one.
Exactly. Well, they're also going to be looking to harass in this 2v2. They already know, SKT already knows that NL's flash is down, so they want to stop them from doing Krugs. There's a very critical thing that happened in the first matchup here as well, and we have some time to talk about it right now. It's all about item breakpoints in this Ezreal versus Lucian lane. Lucian wants to stay in the 2v2 long enough to buy a BF sword, but Ezreal wants to be able to efficiently back just on tier without getting punished. What happened the last time these guys played each other is SKT took too much harass in lane, Bang backed early, and had to go back on a cull and a longsword instead of waiting for the BF sword. And that allowed NL to back on a tier, be very efficient, and split to win the lane, which should actually not happen in a Lucian versus Ezreal matchup. Here, because they burned the flash early, you have to imagine that Bang and Wolf will be able to win this lane long enough to wait to back for the BF sword and extend the pressure forward. That would be the first step towards SKT getting a win back.
Certainly what they're looking for here. Although Sword Art is going to make life a
level 2
little
first.
hard. Goes for Wolf. Instant exhaust on him. Sword Art is stunned up by the concussive blows, but NL is nice and healthy. And the supports just trade back and forth while that all starts up. And SKT might be thinking twice about any more aggression in this bot lane for the moment.
Yeah, that's huge though, and I have to blame Bang and Wolf for not understanding what was happening in that lane. They had taken the small Krug, that is Flash Wolf, so they were going to hit level 2 first, unless SKT pushed out the lane too quickly, and then they equalized the Summoner spells. Here comes a gank from Karsa.
Karsa is roaming up towards the top side. Duke realized it was coming a little bit too late here, and he does have his flash. Will he be able to hold it? He does. MMD and Karsa forced to back off as he gets under tower. Meanwhile, back to the mid, Faker zoning with the parallel convergence, but Maple is not deterred from that farm.
It's really hard to push Maokai out of lane as well, as the Poppy with his corrupting potion and his teleport being up as well. That's a very high cost gank from Karsa, and it's going to allow Blank to power farm a little bit. He also recognized the pathing that Karsa took up there, and he's going to be able to get the red buff here. An extremely dangerous gank from Karsa, and he's punished very hard for it, losing this red.
Karsa, we'll see if he decides to hang back in lane. We actually have been seeing him revert back to what we knew of him in the LCS, that jungler that will focus on lanes and will focus on getting them ahead and snowballing rather than the power farm that we see more common with a lot of other junglers. And
right,
he's shown multiple faces here. I mean, and that's a very good thing.
Yeah, Karsa definitely juxtaposed with Blank's very farm-heavy early game style. If you just look at the LCK junglers in general for their league, they had by far the most farm of any region. And Karsa has always been a gank-focused jungler, specifically this season. You get to see it there, but when the ganks don't work, you get heavily punished by the farm-heavy style. And SKT essentially incurred no risk for what Blank just did, but he gets a rather substantial reward.
Yeah. It's a big part of the reason why they focus so heavily on picking up that Maokai. They know even if Duke does get dove, he will be just fine, or at least ganked up in that top side. Everything is very even to start this game off. Despite a couple early summoner trades back and forth, it hasn't really resulted in a whole lot of gold differential for either team. And now, back to the bottom side, NL and Sword Art are going to try to change that pretty soon, going relatively even against the Lucian Braum.
Yeah, but we really need to track the gold here, right? Bang and Wolf are completely full health, haven't had to recall yet, and the exhaust is almost back. He's already sitting on 1,000 gold, so getting ever closer to being able to back on that BF sword. It's looking much better for SKT in this lane, despite having to blow the exhaust. They're looking like they're in good shape.
Yeah, not too much worry for them, and you just have to reset your mental state after those 3 games. Don't really know what's been in their heads, but it just has seemed like they just have been suboptimal ever since even the first loss against RNG. And what a back and forth long match that was. And then just after that, the Flash Wolves victory a lot quicker, a lot cleaner.
You see Karsa though with a repeat attempt.
Goes up, nails the cocoon this time, and MMD takes the hammer to him, but he's still gonna try to walk it out. There's the flash, grasp the Undying procs for MMD, but Karsa tanks a turret shot on that one, and he's not enough to get him.
This gank was really important though, because Duke had just teleported back into lane. So he won't be able to refill his health very quickly. He's gonna chunk all of his corruption potion, whereas MMD can go back and teleport in and then needs to layer on the pressure very quickly.
Yeah, this is definitely troubling for him right now, and he goes back, picks up, well, after he'd last gone back, the last thing he was able to pick up was that Dark Seal.
Yeah, it'll increase the efficiency of his corruption potion, but he recognized that he was going to get bullied out of lane if he stayed, so he recalls yet again, and this time has to walk back to lane. And instead of MMD teleporting in to force Duke to recall, essentially, since he realizes he now has the teleport advantage, he's going to maintain that. And we need to look for that to have some impact on Karsa's next gank, which I think should be bottom or mid lane, since no matter what, they will have the numbers advantage if they use their teleport.
Have to keep track of Karsa on that pathing. He has been a little bit punished in the jungle, but he has been able to get his lanes ahead. Very characteristic, of course. Everything else relatively even here. We haven't really touched on Maple v Faker because it is a bit of an interesting matchup, but they really haven't been diving all in for anything. And why need to when you were in a standard lane matchup? But Karsa is still focusing topside. This time Duke has no summoners.
Yeah, SKT is really expecting this though. The entire team is roaming up.
Yeah, this could be dangerous if they can't shave the bark off the tree fast enough. Vengeful Maelstrom is on, and in a 1v2, they know something's up, and they have to send him flying, but Blank and Wolf are here. Karsa is bleeding. They're going to get away from this one, but it still was dangerous.
Yeah, didn't even have to burn his flash, though, which is valuable. And Faker also used a fair bit of time roaming up there and loses a little bit of lane pressure against Maple. So all told, I think Karsa kind of gets away with that one, even though his intentions were guessed properly by SKT.
Yeah, well, when you repeat the same thing a couple times in a row, definitely starting to realize the patterns that emerge there. Faker met by Wolf in the mid lane. They just keep trading farm back and forth here. And we got to go back to that bot as well, because even though Bang has a pretty significant CS advantage, NL did exactly what you said he needed to do.
Yeah, well, he made it back to get a tier and As we see Faker get aggressive.
Oh, hold on. Maple just pulls him over his shoulder, and Faker is going to have to walk out through River.
Faker wins that trade, though, because he's still got Corruption Potion stacks, and his teleport will be back shortly, so I think that was good of Faker to go aggressive right there. To speak about the bottom lane, though, getting the BF Sword was great for Bang. Tyran Pickaxe is still good for NL, but I think this is favored for SKT still. It's going much better for SKT in the bottom lane this game rather than the first time around.
And in the SKT losses that we have seen, they have tended to get behind a little bit more in the early game and just have the lead rolled on them instead of what they normally do to opponents.
Right, and specifically for Flash Wolves, they have a similar strategy in both of these games they played against SKT. They pick one lane to heavily focus, and they get a small advantage on that, and they look to turn that into a bigger advantage onto that, and then take that big advantage into a team fight and hope the other lanes can play fairly equal. In Game 1, which was yesterday, it was onto Faker. They just continually camped him and tried to ruin his day. Here it looks like they're trying to ruin Duke's day. It's just not going nearly as well. He's down only 4 CS, and his teleport's going to be back up with the teleport advantage for MMD never utilized. He actually hasn't used his teleport the entire time Duke's teleport was on cooldown.
Yeah, not only that, all that advantage they've really gained has been effectively negated by what you've seen in the bottom lane. The Lucian Braum combo, Bang and Wolf, has just been really taking it to him. Take a look at that fan vote, though. SKT, they're still standing behind him. Good reason. There's always a lot to trust in this team. Oh, that's just 1 HP.
Yeah, and with Blank's red buff, we saw Blank actually take a blue buff from Faker yesterday, accidentally. Nearly happened again right there, and that's half on Blank and half on Faker.
Bit of a panic moment.
Yeah, ends up having to use an extra cooldown to get over the wall, wastes a bit of time.
Speaking of time, NL still got plenty of it. Just trying to stack that tier as he gets a little bit of harass onto Wolf and Bang, dodging out from the piercing light. Still staying healthy. Sword Art has really played incredibly impressive this tournament, and just overall in the LMS region, he's enabled NL so many times. And when we were looking at the 80 carries coming into this tournament, it really did look like NL was one of the weaker ones, but he has completely proven that false.
Well, I think on Ezreal, he can definitely get by. And when they have Sword Art playing so well, it also adds to that extremely well. Only down 5 CS here, even against the BF Sword, so definitely agree with that point.
Maple now, he's going to be chased through his own jungle. Blank was coming on a slow gank and Faker following right behind, but it has been, despite what we saw yesterday, a very slower early game, not for lack of trying to get kills, though.
It's a very slow-paced game, and Flash Wolves, when they started this tournament and back at Worlds, were playing a very slow game, and then they switched over to having the Assassins on Maple, trying to play a much faster style. But that faster style did hand them a loss against RNG earlier today, so they're back to the Azir, which means a slower style, and for SKT, they're also still playing to just kind of absorb what Flash Wolves is doing, but this time they have a very strong team fighting composition with the Maokai and the strong front line, and they're looking to get Dragon and just kind of build this small advantage.
Give themselves that first buff. Something that the Flash Wolves weren't really doing before this tournament, grabbing those early dragons, or at least attempting to, and forcing fights off it at the very least. We saw that turn around in day 2 yesterday, but SKT managed to grab that from under their noses. Not much they can do about it. MMD will get some free time on this tower, but it's only a couple of hits before Duke comes to the rescue. Tosses out the soccer saplings.
Yep, and we're seeing a pretty big difference in the jungle farm right now since none of Karsa's ganks have worked. 35 CS, 255, and a completed warrior enchantment from Blank. The Rift Herald will give him a bit of temporary power, which will help, but that 400 gold difference on the junglers is not to be ignored, especially if Blank begins invading Karsa. Not to even to mention that in the later game teamfights, the Graves is much better than Lilies.
Yeah, it does seem like there's a timer, at least on some of what the Flash Wolves can do. It's the same thing we saw in their earlier game today.
Yeah.
And it's just emblematic at the moment.
Yeah, the interesting thing, though, is that they still have the Azir, and I think Azir can be a great equalizer. Even looking at the 2 games Faker played on Azir yesterday, he was able to reach max items even despite going 0-4-0 in one of the games. So, like, Azir can stall out games tremendously long, and if Azir gets a good team fight, his damage potential is higher than almost any other champion because his soldiers just hit everyone if they're grouped up. So
it's true.
Even though SKT has a great teamfight composition, it's not like Flash Wolves can't win a late game teamfight.
No, and it's definitely been proved that that could happen
Oh
before.
dear,
Now
that
Blank,
Rift Herald advantage.
He is trying to get the blowback there. They trade in though, and Sword Art with the Battle Cow headbutt. Pulverize goes in, the relief pitchings come, but I think that this is not gonna end so well for SKT. We'll have to find out. Faker tagging back in. Wolf though, they turn onto him instead. Exhaust onto MMD. Sword Art still tanking the damage up as best he can. It's still just the 1 for none. Everyone is bleeding though. And Flash Wolves back off with 1 kill in their pockets.
Whew, and that is not good for Blank. His advantage was just kind of handed over there to Karsa. Karsa had the temporary power of the Rift Herald, and Blank goes for his first substantial, or his second substantial invade. He'd already taken the red buff once. Dashes in straight away and just gets chunked by Karsa. Doesn't even clear distance with his ult either. He ulted himself back into a wall, which gives Sword Art time to flash, headbutt, pulverize, and the great save by Maple at the end there, peeling Faker off of his jungle. And then all TPs are in, so it's just a full-on brawl, but it ends up being disengaged.
Yeah, definitely could have gone a lot worse for SKT here. We're still only 13.5 minutes into this game. It's starting to heat up just a little bit. Small gold advantage for Flash Wolves as MMD gets chased out by Duke up in the top side, and a lot of SK Telecom members hanging around here trying to deny Cars a bit of farm, steal the blue buff back for themselves. Blank needs to get that advantage back. Let's see who it goes over to. Everything else pretty normal, and that's taken by Blank.
Yeah, so Undaunted, after his first failed invade, recognized they would have the numbers advantage. The teleports ward down. Maple gets some good harass onto Wolf while they're going to ward. And yeah, this game is still undecided. Maple goes really aggressive though.
Another soldier just keeps going, but Faker's here now and he can stand behind him. So Wolf will walk it out, but Maple really hunting around for those kills. NL sends the ult flying. Does it manage to connect? No, this time Wolf sees it coming. And he sidesteps away before backing off.
Yeah, good idea right there. Faker had died to an Ezreal ultimate in the previous game. I believe it was Faker when NL got him from the bot lane to the mid lane, so SKT learned from that. Realized NL would go for the play.
Another reason to prioritize that Ezreal aside from taking it away from Bang.
But because Wolf is gone, they know they can get Bang.
Yeah, big calling lands on NL, but it only does half of his health channeled, and now Bang has to flash after dash. He's still gonna get stunned up, and Karza claims the kill. Blank arrives a moment too late.
Love the punish from Flash Wolves. They get Wolf low, they go straight through the jungle, they get wards to make sure they're not going to be collapsed upon. They knew the teleports were down from the last play. So much went into that play, and Bang wasn't respecting it. He didn't expect Flash Wolves to be able to pull the trigger that quickly, and he gets punished.
You play all the macro you want and try to run them around, but Flash Wolves, they know how to find the kills and get themselves right back into it. Still now, 500 gold in the lead, and you can see why they're owning the Rift still.
Yeah, you just have to capitalize on those small advantages, turn them into medium-sized advantages, and then get the big advantages in the team fights. That has been MSI so far. There's been mistakes. You need to capitalize them time and time again. There's so much pressure on these guys, but the combined kills per minute in these games is way higher than any other region was during their regular splits. This game, it hasn't reached it yet, but based on the team composition, this ain't going to be one of those split-pushing games. They're going to be going for big team fights pretty soon.
No, when we start getting kills before those tower trades, not a lot of tower swaps we've really seen. And just trading back and forth. NL once again tries to snipe the blue buff, but it goes down to 57, and Blank is still hanging it. Handing it to Faker. No, we can't get the time winder.
Blank walked away from the blue buff instead of pressing S to stay still, and he makes Faker use another time winder on this. This is not going well for Blank this game.
No, Faker's still having to take a little bit more time, missing time back in lane. Little mistakes. This time there's really nothing else Flash Wolves can do about it, but still.
Yeah, when all things are considered, that play itself doesn't really do much to the overall game, but it's just how many times will Blank make these small mistakes, and you have to wonder how that plays on the mindset of SKT and Faker and their confidence in one another when they keep making these small mistakes and messing up things they never mess up in the LCK regular season.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is, admittedly, this is the strongest team in every region playing against each other. However, you just don't expect this from a team like SKT. Two-time world champions, consistently now winning over in Korea for 3 splits in a row.
Yep.
It just boggles the mind.
Yeah, but we also have to remember this is Blank's first split, and he wasn't even the full-time starter until halfway through the season.
Not till after IEM.
He's obviously stepped up tremendously, and he showed that he can play on an international stage at IEM. But this tournament is just not going as well for him so far. It's still a very long tournament, still a long game, but he's got to be real careful here.
Blank this time, he gets shuffled backwards, but a quick flash, and he does sink the blowback.
Now Karza, though,
he's not going to be getting away from him. That Spider, a lot of damage dealt, and Sora goes in, Karza comes up, Karza's shut down, and they manage to find one back into this game. It goes to Faker. MMD, though, says, let's get out of here, and winds up the hammer to send him flying back. 1-for-1 trade in the end.
Yep, but actually advantage SKT because Flash Wolves used the flash of their Sword Art initiation on Alistar right there, and the shutdown went to Faker, who definitely wants that in this matchup against Azir.
Gold in his pocket, definitely much obliged. He's still rocking a 10 CS lead, of course, but that just doesn't really matter when you've started to get kills in your pocket instead. So SKT on the board with that one, and they get themselves a small, but albeit their gold advantage, and look to push it further with Bang and Wolf on the bottom side. NL trying to solo defend, but it's not going to happen.
They also gained the tempo advantage because Sword Art was pushed low enough in that fight that he had to go back to base. So getting the first turret in the game, pretty big. We compare it to the other turret in that mid lane, in that bottom lane, which has hardly been touched. So that's the extension of that small advantage in the bottom lane of Bang being able to get the first BF sword in the matchup before NL could get to his item breakpoints.
Let's take a look at how that one started again. A lot of patience from Maple and Karza.
Yeah, they go for it right here, but they can't quite burst Blank out entirely. And then he clears a lot of distance there with his quick draw and his ultimate backwards. And Karza gets blinded by the smoke screen and just can't get his Q off as quickly as he would like. So he takes a ton of damage from Faker, who was fastest to that roam. And then Duke was disengaged by MMD when they realized the kills are going to be traded.
Speaking of Duke, they decide now is the time for the dive, but MMD is taking a little bit too much. There are a lot of people coming up here. Bang comes around the side and Cole's out onto MMD. Duke has held firm with barely a scratch on him. They just keep focusing the tree, but can't get him down.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what they were trying to accomplish with that gank. Duke had his ultimate on with the Sunfire Cape and a Spectre's Cal, and that's an Aegis jungler and a tank top laner trying to pull off that dive. If they were diving Bang, then maybe they would have been able to do it. Maybe. But a full tank Maokai, not a chance.
Yeah, trying to look for an advantage there. Trying to look for somebody to fight. Flash Wolves just so hyphy. Now the laning phase is finally over, of course. We approach the 20-minute mark, and Baron starts to become a reality. Normally I wouldn't say, oh, a team will go for Baron. Obviously no one's ahead enough to try it, but we have seen some really sneaky attempts so far.
We really have, and Azir can kill Baron tremendously quickly. I do have to point out that the kill distribution on Flash Wolves is not what they would have liked.
No, it's all
having
Karza.
so much gold on Karza, and then for him to build an aura item, it'll help the team a little bit for team fights as much as he can, but it's really just not the same as having that gold on an Ezreal or an Azir for scaling purposes. So this gold lead of 800 by SKT, since SKT's kill distribution is completely on Faker, it's actually a little bit bigger than you would think. The 1,000 gold advantage, in my opinion, as far as team fights are hitting, is closer to 2 or 3K.
SKT will be a little bit more happy with how they've gotten it. Only 1 kill to distribute, but when it's on to Faker, after he had been having some rough times in many games, is coming at a bit of relief to him. MMD in the bottom side clearing away the minion wave and not letting it crash into turret number 2. Duke, though, on a counter jungle mission himself, actually.
Yeah.
No one can see this, just focusing on this bottom side and trying to deny Karza as much as possible, even though he does have a lot of gold from the kills.
Yeah, and Flash Wolves need to be able to execute on the plays they've set up. They have 4 wards inside the jungle of SKT, but MMD doesn't have his teleport up yet, so you would want actually MMD to get his teleport, flank in behind, go for some type of fight, but that's just not the situation we're in right now. And NL ends up taking a bit of damage in that top lane, which diminishes the chance of the play even more, and really you get to see the SKT building their advantage pretty steadily here.
What they like to do, get themselves 1,000 in the lead so far. Small advantages turn into bigger ones. And then SKT turn around and drop the stone on you. But Faker and Maple trading out a little bit there in the mid lane. Focusing top side, though, is the rest of SKT, minus Duke, who's duking it out with MMD, actually. Still just pushing the wave back and forth, so
yeah.
Got the 1-3-1 pretty heavily in hand at the moment, just to try to knock down the last of the outer turrets.
Yeah, as long as Maokai and Poppy stay in vision of each other, neither one of them can teleport into a fight.
Ooh.
Stuffs the ultimate.
Yeah, stopped, and Sword Art's not so lucky on that one. He is very low, has to pop his own heal. NL takes a Winter's Bite. This tower's just getting worn down, slowly but surely.
Yeah, NL doesn't even have the added wave clear of having the Iceborne Gauntlet yet either, and Bang is really punishing them, knowing that he's hit his Essence Reaver and his Zeal, so really a one-sided lane matchup right there that is probably going to result in the second turret of the game for SKT.
Don't want to take any chances. They just keep playing it out safe, and Bang will finish it off and get himself the local gold. Grabs that one. So 2 towers for SK Telecom T1, and they've got themselves even more gold ahead without taking a whole lot of risks here. Karza trying to punish Faker in the mid lane, but he's already out. Chrono Break is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, you get to go and keep your lane pressure up pretty well. Chrono Break, as well as Teleport, means you can never really shove an Echo out of lane. And he played the early lane well enough before he'd have his ultimate that he kept his CS even to better with Maple. So Faker definitely playing quite well this game.
Bang sends out a big calling. NL has to burn Summoner Heal to get out of that. That is not a good start, or at least not a good way to hang still in lane. A lot of Flash Wolves hanging around in that topside jungle, but what are they looking to do here? Can they really fight against this front line that SKT built?
Yeah, that's going to be the question. Karza is definitely slowed down in his ability to add pressure to this map since, you know, SKT has now been so patient with a lot of their summoner spells, save for Blank having to use his flash. But the rest of the team, double teleports up, Bang has full summoners, completed his rapid fire cannon. Faker applying a lot of pressure. Duke pretty much always on Flash Wolves' side of the map.
Just letting them not get any advantages here, though, as Faker does get pinball back and forth. The Sword Art coming out of the blue. He's still hanging up, and that is a lot of damage dealt back. Bang, looking to assassinate Sword Art, but he flashes away from it. Maple, a little bit low, can't get back involved in this one. Blank, though, throws down his smoke screen, and that'll be cover for Flash Wolves. That was a close call, though.
Whew, Faker goes really aggressive, and they get 2 summoners for it because Bang was right behind him. The turret in the top lane dies. For a second, I thought it was the mid lane turret coming down, but that's probably going to be quick. Karza in trouble as well.
Has to burn his flash as Wolf jumped right on forward. That's a tower in the mid, traded for tower in the top. NL was patiently pecking away. But Bang still's got pressure in this mid side. SKT, they're starting to turn the heater up. It started on slow, but now it is going a little quicker.
Yeah, and they haven't even gotten to the teamfight phase yet. They're just playing these lanes, and Faker's keeping the pressure up in the mid lane. That turnaround on the ultimate was very smart. He recognized that Flash Wolves did not have the burst to take him down. He knew he had Blank behind him. And now Flash Wolves check right into a brush.
This time he had Blank in front of him. MMD, though, he's trying to make it happen as he sends the hammer flying before having to flash away from 3 SKT members. Maple can't get the poke off that he wants, and they're fighting in the Flash Wolf jungle, but SKT have enough control to not care.
Yeah, a lot of summoner spells actually off the board right here for this dragon, which could make for a rather
Faker's going
chaotic and deadly dragon fight here. Faker
might get
doesn't have a shield anymore.
No, but he does have Chrono Break. He jumps right back in. That's a big AoE, and they look for even more. Faker tags himself right back in. Can't get the kill, but that will surely mean dragon.
Wow, Faker with a huge amount of damage in that team fight. Will not show up on the scoreboard in any way because they didn't convert for those kills, but it will let them convert onto this dragon number 3.
Slowly, steadily building themselves back into it and just get the snowball rolling. It may not be the biggest, but it's the one that SKT are building to get themselves their first win in 2 days. NL wanted to change that, but SKT, cool trigger fingers for Blank. This time he gets the smite up at the right time. 3 Drakes to none.
Yeah, got to commend NL. He's had a lot of close calls on those ultimates cutting through, but unable to get the actual objective steals. And SKT continuing to build this advantage up a little bit.
Does have a few more items completed, though, that'll allow him to have some breathing room. The Iceborne Gauntlet now and the Muramana finished, and then works towards a Last Whisper and finishes that off as well. So
yeah,
they've got some spikes going for him, but SKT 3,000 gold ahead. Is it starting to get a little out of hand? Normally I wouldn't say it on 3K, but
right. Well, like, it depends on which SKT you think this is. Is this the SKT that everyone had as a unanimous favorite heading into MSI, or is it the SKT that's on a 3-game losing streak and just lost to CLG despite holding a large late-game gold lead? So, yeah, we are at MSI. So this lead is definitely not safe yet for SKT.
Yeah, just about anything can happen at this tournament, and just about everything has so far. We'll see if Flash Wolves can manage to close this one out, but it's going to get harder and harder for them unless they can get some pickoffs here. Karza going very far forward, and Sword Art from the backside can't find the kill, but they do grab the tower. Return fire, though. Sword Art with the flank on the cow. Just manages to set that one up.
SKT definitely trying to set up their 1-3-1, and the way they get initiations is with double teleport flanks. Echo and Maokai in the back line to shut down Maple or NL. That's what they're going to be trying to do, but in setting up the 1-3-1 there, they had a little bit of a hole in the mid lane. The 3 wasn't as strong as what Flash Wolves had there, and their 1 on the side couldn't get an advantage in Faker, so that's why they ended up losing that turret, but they still are able to get a red buff.
I don't think Karza's managed to get very many of his own red buffs this game.
No, he is definitely not having success right here. And this does go back to the draft phase. There are 3 main junglers on this patch in the Nidalee, the Kindred, and the Graves. And 2 of those were banned away. And then Flash Wolves decided they needed the first pick Sword Art's Alistar. So Blank took the other one, and Karsa was left with the lower tier of jungle. And he's been unable to farm and keep up with what Blank has been doing, and has fallen pretty far behind in this game.
Well, and it's just something that he likes to do, the Elise, but he typically will build at Sightstone. He's obviously had to pivot a little bit on that one as well, but now SKT, they're starting up for this Baron.
Yeah.
It's going low already.
I think they're going to be able to get it. There's a scout from Ezreal. Wolf is actually very low.
Does
but
force
this Baron,
him out of here. This
oh,
is
they're
so
here
dangerous.
time.
Karsa's here. Oh my lord, he gets it. He stole the Baron away, and SKT starts coming apart at the seams. No kills traded, but Karsa plays the hero, and he gets it.
The nightmare continues for Blank. He cannot secure the Baron right now, but the team was peeling away from damaging Baron before it was actually dead. The True Shot Barrage cut them very low. They got scared of the initiation. Instead of trusting that they could all go to the back of the pit, finish the Baron, and then jump out the backside, they scattered a little bit around. I'll have to see that one again. And then Karsa gets in range for the execute. What a massive play there by Karsa.
Creeping and crawling came Karsa, and the rest of Flash Wolves scared SKT right off of that one. And all the plans come undone. Baron power play now for the Flash Wolves, and they've cut the gold lead down to 500.
Yeah, right back in the game, and with the stats from the Baron buff, if the team fight were to start now, they'd be rather powerful. They're going to try and get some split push pressure on here, but looking at this Baron in particular, the True Shot Barrage goes down, and I'm looking at Bang, Blank, and Duke trying to damage this Baron. See, Bang jumps out the back of the pit. Instead of just finishing the Baron as he moves towards the back and dashing out, it was going to be really close, and he was worried about the collapse, but they just let Karsa waltz in there, get the execute on Baron, and now they're going for a dive on Bang.
Oh, a huge heap of helping of damage, and they just melt through his health bar just like that. Towers down as well. Flash Wolves, when they get you in their jaws, they don't let go.
And Duke is top lane without teleport, so they cannot defend this next push, and they are going to lose an inhibitor.
Inhibitor turret's down, inhibitor's going down. We're 29 minutes into this game, and it looked like SKT were about to find their form, but Flash Wolves said no, and this is going crazy.
MSI, man, what's it gonna do to a team? SKT, they looked like such an unstoppable force heading in to this tournament, and then it looked like they had a little bit of it back with that 4,000 gold lead. You'd expect SKT to find a team fight, be able to zone properly, set up the wards, play to their win conditions, do all the great things we know SKT for doing. But then they flop a Baron play, let Karsa waltz in and steal it, and then have a lackluster defense of their mid-turret, which leads to the inhibitor going down. They teleport in as Sword Art gets the stun onto Bang. Nothing is going to stop him from dying once he gets caught like that. And they were setting up the 1-3-1 against a Baron. You just cannot do that when 5 people are mid lane.
Tried to assassinate an L in the back half of it too, but Faker now, he's getting chased down. Maple takes out Blank.
They're
off
falling
screen in the
apart.
mid. Faker's gonna go down too. SKT, what the hell is going on with this team?
I mean, it is Flash Wolves also playing tremendously once they get a little bit of lead. Flash Wolves know how to pull the trigger right now. It started from the early game plays. They bided their time. They waited for the SKT mistake, and they're finding ways to pick people off. Faker tried to make the pick onto NL, which he did so many times during the regular season when SKT needed the pick. He was able to get a kill and kind of pull the game back. Still anyone's game. 2,000 gold, 1 inhibitor down, and SKT still has the Dragon advantage.
Absolutely, but Flash Wolves do have a massive tempo swing. 5 kills to 1 now on the board, and it is a 2.5K gold advantage, really, at the 30-minute mark. And it's a big Baron power play at the end of it all. Flash Wolves really made that one work for him. See where they go next. Dead Inhib in the middle. They have a lot of pressure on their side.
Yeah, I think the average Baron power play that doesn't end the game is about 2,000, and that was a near 5,000 gold Baron power play, so really a lot of work being done by Flash Wolves. And a teleport home guard coming in. Wolf is completely separated from his pack.
And he's got nowhere to go here. MMD, NL, the rest, they just beat boop, bop him around, knock him up, pinball, take him out. It's Maple to secure the kill. And there's nothing SKT can do to save him or really get any side pressure. Karsa's even going to start this Dragon.
You have to wonder what SKT's mindset is like now. They've already lost 3 games in a row, and then they go from winning the game to just getting picked off one at a time. They are playing like a team that is not a team right now. They are playing individual games, and no one is on the same page since that Baron was stolen.
It's almost the same thing we were seeing out of G2 eSports in earlier days, and to a lesser extent even now. And that is a troubling thing to think about. SKT, even if they manage to bring this one back, there's still a lot to criticize, but as you said before, Flash Wolves absolutely know how to execute. They grab themselves another turret here, try to push that gold lead forward, and they are not afraid to dive in and get down and dirty just to make sure they can secure it.
Yeah, the difference, I think, with SKT and the earlier G2 eSports right there, amongst numerous differences, there are a ton of them, but when losing the game, SKT still knows how to stall a tremendously long amount of time. Their 2 losses yesterday were averaging over 50 minutes. Their loss against CLG was also a tremendously long game.
And very close affair, too.
And 32
2 out of the 3
minutes
losses were very close.
Exactly. 32 minutes in right here with a 3,000 gold deficit. SKT is still absolutely capable of winning this game. It is not over by any measure, other than the fact that they're on a 3-game losing streak.
You got to take momentum into account, whether it's actual in-game momentum or just what's going on inside the minds of the players, but we can only guess, we can only fathom for SK Telecom right now. If they can grab themselves back into this game, it's a much-needed respite to try and move forward in these group stages. But to go down 4 times in a row, the defending world champions, 2-time world champions, is almost unthinkable.
Exactly, and we need to just kind of refocus on the game, as well as Flash Wolves and SKT need to as well. Not think about the past games and figure out, okay, exactly what does Flash Wolves need to do to win the game, and what does SKT need to do to win the game.
Well, you called out the Azir earlier on, and noted how Karza was getting a lot of the kills, a lot of the farm, but they have started to give a little bit back to him. He's gotten really into these kills and into these fights effectively, and I think that's what they need to keep doing.
Exactly. With the Rylai's Crystal Scepter there for Maple, he is a team fight beast, and SKT continues to try to set up these 1-3-1s, but they haven't been able to get the flanks. So what Flash Wolves has been able to do and what they need to continue to be doing is when SKT split up to try and get the waves pushed, Flash Wolves pounce. They go and get the kill, whereas SKT, even though they failed doing these 1-3-1s, as long as Baron is down, they need to get all 3 waves pushing at once, and then find a way to get TP flanks on from Faker and Duke to kill Maple and NL.
Well, Duke does get back to the safety of his team, but there is a lot of vision control. Speaking of Baron, just staggered around it right now, and even in the SKT jungle, they've been pushed back quite far. Good news for them is they should have their inhibitor coming up fairly soon. Not as soon as the Baron, unfortunately. They do manage to get the Azir turret out, so at least they can get themselves a little bit more breathing room, but Flash Wolves already pinging onto the Baron. See if they can set this one up. SKT are going to beat him to the punch.
Yeah, so 20 seconds for Baron. I doubt SKT will go for another Baron like the one they just did, but that was an example of them almost being far enough ahead on the play to make it work, because they had split up and gotten enough map pressure before that happened, which was honestly the culmination of about 5 minutes of map rotation and deep wards to allow SKT to try and make that play, and then they flubbed it, which I think it was so disastrous for them. If we look at it now, it's actually Flash Wolves that have all the appropriate wards. They have the wards in the SKT territory. They don't have the waves pushed out, so it's a little bit of a mix of both things, and it's going to probably create a pretty long game here.
Yeah, we definitely have been seeing a lot of them with SK Telecom, as you mentioned. They do die hard, and they also know how to hang on for dear life and get themselves back into it. Flash Wolves, though, this game, not making so many mistakes outside of maybe focusing a little too heavily on the top side, and Duke really not any the worse for the wear. But Flash Wolves are sitting up another trap. They got him! He's knocked up! And they pinball him back in again. But this time, the Braum lands the Glacial Fissure on this, and Wolf is hanging firm as NL is caught out for a moment. And he's taken out! That's the chance! But Maple sinks the divide, and MMD sends him flying back just to try and get themselves a number advantage for a moment. Faker is running wild, but does he have the health to tank it? He does, as he chrono breaks back to save his own skin. And Wolf now targeted out.
Maple's
still can't take him down. This is just absolutely insane. It is a 1-for-1. After all that, but it's not done. Faker decides to change his mind.
Yeah, Maple had a really quick flash to stop Faker from being able to assassinate him right there, because Maple took a little bit of poke from the Time Winder at the very end of that fight. But wow, that was an example of Flash Wolves going a little bit too early, because they saw Juicy Graves walking towards an unwarded brush right there, but they didn't quite have the damage in place at the very start of that fight.
Yeah, let's take a look at it, because it was all over the place. They caught blank,
exactly.
But then...
Yeah, Maple and Azir are both there, and NL actually shifts in to get caught in the Braum ultimate, so he takes a ton of damage from Bang, and then is hurt by the positioning of Duke's Maokai. And they're actually... I don't care about this replay anymore. They're going for Baron.
Yeah, it's already past half its health right now, and there aren't enough SKT members in the pit to make a difference. Smited away by Karza. Flash Wolves secure theirs, and they make it look easy.
Yeah, in a what was close to a 1 fight for SKT, Flash Wolves is actually able to get the Baron, which is crazy.
Faker
and now Faker's caught out.
Oh, but he's popped up again, and Maple just slays him where he stands. 4-0-2 now on the Azir. Baron empowered, push incoming.
Yeah.
And Flash Wolves are going to start knocking up top lane.
And it's a minute-long death timer, and Duke's not there yet again. He'll be able to teleport in, but this could actually be a 2-inhibitor trade. Every Baron giving yet another reward for these guys. And SKT, how did they give that Baron away?
Blank or Bang.
Oh, NL's caught in the back.
He's caught. No, Bang is taken out, but NL couldn't do much on that one. He does get taken out. 80 carries traded, but still, Faker has a long death timer on this one. Inhibitor's gone down.
Yeah, it's actually just Tanks and Blank right now to try and stop this push. And even though there's no Ezreal, they have an Azir. They could end.
They almost have no damage left except for Blank to see if he can hold it on. And then he's winding up the Poppycopter, and he takes off and sends Wolf back into the fountain. They turn onto Duke. Turret's still going, and they're out of minions.
Yeah, they are going to decide to back away and get this second inhibitor if they are smart, but they do not even crack a Nexus turret. So yet another advantage for Flash Wolves and another big Baron power play.
But SKT do hold on. This time they are down 6,000 gold, and Flash Wolves are turning for Dragon number 2. SKT are running out of options here, and they're gonna have to be forced to turtle.
Yeah, just a crazy turn of events right there. Going back to how the Baron was actually taken, SKT had been chunked very low from the previous fight, but so had Flash Wolves, and SKT decided to push the mid-wave before going back. Looking at that fight one more time, you can see Blank and Wolf kind of waiting in the wings for NL, both AD carries getting caught at the same time.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, yes, they were able to secure him, and they'd already not been able to get much else, but maybe they could have saved Bang and saved even more and saved an inhibitor. I mean, I guess it's pointless to really get the speculation off that, but as it stands, Flash Wolf still holding on to a pretty hefty lead here. SKT trying to claw their way back in.
Yeah, and SKT's win conditions are getting quite narrow right now because they have a gold deficit against this Azir, and they need to be able to get the right team fights, but the right team fights for SKT require setup and flanks. And Faker is really big right now with his death cap onto Echo, but it's really hard to pilot Echo in late game team fights without a flank. He can't just walk into a team fight and be effective. He needs to be able to get behind them in the chaos. So Flash was going to try and set up the right lines here with 2 inhibitors down.
Looking for the third. Sword Art is tanking the culling. Faker comes in, looks to try and take a bat to NL. He actually goes golden on this one, but look at all the damage they're dishing out, and Wolf is trying to hold firm, but MMD's in the back, punishing him for it, and now Wolf is slain as Karza secures the kill credit for that. MMD a little low, elects to start backing away, but inhibitor tower number 3 is now down, and the Flash Wolves can slowly edge this one out with only Bang, Blank, and Duke there to defend. Poppy's back in just a few more seconds, and it's going to be a 5v4 to try and hold on.
Yeah, well, there's still a 5v4, as you said, and the minions are quite there. They're going, though.
They're going right in. Nexus turrets be damned. They're going for broke on this one. Now they turn their attention to take him out, and the cow gets a pinball off onto Duke and Blank. Just enough damage to take down the tree. Nexus turret number 2 is gonna fall, and Faker is trying to save the day. Chrono breaking back to stop Sword Art, but not enough, and NL chasing Blank all the way back into Fountain. Faker's pushed back, the double kill for NL. Flash Wolves have done it again.
I almost can't believe it. SKT is now 2-4 at the 2016 Mid-Season Invitational.
2 of those losses to the LMS side. It looked like it might have turned around as SKT were right back in the control game they like in the beginning, but Flash Wolves proved that they can take chaos and make something gold out of it.
Yeah, 13 kills to 3. The early game was very disciplined by Flash Wolves. They absorbed SKT, came back from a 2,000 gold differential, and it's such a great tournament for Flash Wolves. This is the second time in a row they've actually 2-0'd a Korean team in a group stage. They 2-0'd at the time the Ku Tigers at Worlds in 2015, and now they have 2-0'd the champions of that tournament from 2015 Worlds in SKT.
And it sets them up so nicely going further into the tournament to prove that they do deserve that Pool 1 seed at Worlds, and just to prove that they are such a solid team in a solid region.
Yeah, when was the last time SKT's lost 4 games in a row? We need that stat.
We're gonna have to dip back into that one because that goes past the numbers I can count.
It was 615 days since SKT had lost 3 games in a row, but the slide looks to continue here at MSI. They're gonna have to recoup the next day for yet another play, and you got to look at Flash Wolves. what an Elise performance after falling behind about 50 CS to Blank. Blank had 242 CS in that game. Karsa had 131, but the important stat is the Nexus, and in this case, the kills, deaths, and assists, and the Baron steals. Just all the other intangibles outside of CS that he was able to bring to that team.
It almost wasn't even a Baron steal. It was Karsa walking in and say, that's not yours, that's mine, leave. And then just confidently, over and over again, you could see the Flash Wolves playing with such tenacity to get right back into it. And SKT looked like Lost Boys after that.
Yeah, playing with confidence and really knowing when to strike. Because SKT had been playing with discipline, they had been choking the map, they had been getting the deep wards. But the instant that Baron was stolen, all of the teamwork just disappeared from SKT. And that has kind of been what's happened in a lot of these games. The Royal Never Give Up game was incredibly close for SKT, and they stuck through it. But then the first time they played Flash Wolves, they kind of lost the whole time. And then against CLG, it was messy the whole way. And here at the very end, Flash Wolves was able to just create chaos within the SKT ranks and pull out another win. Yeah. Really a shocking MSI.
There really is nothing else to say for it but that. All the results we expected. I know I'm really sorry about your predictions, but at least you can be happy that no one else got it right either.
Yeah, show me the guy who predicted the 2-4 start from SKT.
There's like one dude on Reddit that's just like, yes.
Yeah. Edits his old comments. He can't pull that trick. That's not the way it works.
Yeah,
Credit to Stake and the rest of Flash Wolves as well, though, because this is what they want when Stake decided to not play another season in the top lane. MMD stepped up big, 2-0-4 on Poppy, some massive ultimates, equalized Duke this whole time.
Yeah.
Duke, a lot of people were saying, was the best top laner coming into this tournament. Stake is coaching well with the picks and bans here. It looked like SKT had drafted a strong 1-3-1 to collapse into teamfight compositions, team comp.
Yeah.
But they got Maple on Azir, MMD on Poppy, NL on Ezreal. They got their champions as well. Mm-hmm. They made it work.
And they really put SKT in a lot of uncomfortable situations, making them take fights in places they maybe not wanted to, and making them try to execute a composition that's very, very difficult to pull off, where Flash Wolves, they were swimming in their element all day.
Yeah, and you know what else is difficult? It's like casting SKT losses. Like, we're not used to this. At Worlds, I cast a lot of SKT games, and I only got to cast one loss, and that was in the finals against the Tigers, because that's the only game they lost at Worlds. 4 times as many losses already through 6 games.
You think you feel bad the first time I get to cast SKT and they lose? Come on, man. I mean, apparently that's a new kind of caster curse. But I mean, it's just been a crazy tournament of results so far for everyone involved. And it's just the latest string that SKT are still on this skid. They're going to have to find a way to pick themselves back up.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear from the Flash Wolves how they feel now after beating them again, because the last time we talked to them, they were hesitant about saying they'd be able to do it again.
Yeah.
Now they've done it.
Yeah, well, we won't have to wait too long for that one, because Shox is standing by to talk about Flash Wolves' big win.
Well, indeed, Guy is standing by here with Maple and Maxa assisting for the translation. And hear you talking there, Jad, about, well, them beating SKT twice, which is incredibly impressive. Maple, congratulations. Tell me, what is or was the deciding factor over those 2 games that you guys are not able to consistently take down SK Telecom?
恭喜 Maple， 恭喜你们赢得 SKT， 然后你们已经击败 SKT 2次了，可不可以告诉我们你们击败他们的关键的点在哪里？你们找到什么方法吗？
其实我觉得我们打 SKT 的时候，基本上我们都没什么失误，对，就是没什么失误我们才赢。像打 SKT 的时候就打得特别好。
So I think the crucial point is we didn't make any errors. So if we perform well against SKT and make no errors, we have a really good chance.
Well, making no errors is, of course, not easy on a stage like this. Do you guys feel, as a team, that you're growing? I talked to you on day 1, and you were reluctant to say how far you would go. Do you have a better thought of where you guys could end up? Because you're looking like one of the strongest teams in the tournament.
他说不犯错当然很重要。那可是第一天访问你的时候，问你说你觉得你们排名会如何？然后你有点没有确定的给肯定的答案。那你现在觉得，因为你们现在表现得非常好，大家觉得你们很强，那你大概觉得你们会走多远？
我们4强现在基本上蛮稳的，接下来就是想办法把我们的状态调到最好吧，因为我觉得就是剩下晋级的队伍都不是什么好打的。
I think we're locked in for top 4 for sure, and we still need to do better conditioning for our team because the top 4 teams are going to be really strong.
Well, Swordart yesterday after beating SKT said, well, with this win, I actually think we can win the whole MSI. You haven't beaten RNG yet or CLG. Out of those 2 teams, who do you think is the strongest and who do you think you might meet in the endgame?
昨天赢 SKT 的时候，蛇蛇有说，赢了的话，应该你们 MSI 就要尽量拿冠军。那你们目前为止没有打赢 RNG， 也没有打赢 CLG， 可是在这2队你们里面，你认为哪一队比较强？然后最后你们最有可能遇到谁？
我觉得 RNG 应该是我们觉得最难打了吧，因为我觉得他们的风格跟我们很像之外，他们的每个人的操作也都非常好。
I think RNG is the harder team to beat because they play a very similar style to us, and also their individual mechanics are all really good.
All right, you guys are very close to getting in that top 4, and that would be huge for the LMS region. You guys have done really well at Worlds without ever having the first seed. How important would it be to now be able to go into World Championship as first seed, possibly as Flash Wolves?
他说上一届世界赛的时候，你们没有第一种子，然后进去你们表现也非常好。那这一次如果你们进了4强了，然后就有第一种子，你觉得这对 LMS 还有可能是闪电狼进去的有什么意义？
其实我不是很清楚第一种子是什么。
第一种子就是你们是小组第1名，所以就排位会比较好。第2、3会让别的联盟来选。
他问我大概怎么？啊？他问我大概。
他问你说，那这对就是 LMS 来讲有第一种子啊，有可能是闪电狼是第一种子，对你们来讲的意义？
意义嘛，当然我们拿到种子当然是最好，就是想办法把我们成绩越打越好吧。
We'll be really happy to have first seed, and we'll do better and better.
Well, you guys are doing amazingly so far. Thank you so much, Maple. Flash Wolves taking down SKT twice here at MSI, and our guys at the desk are going to talk a little bit more about that match.
Thank you very much, Shocks. Before we get into the second win for Flash Wolves over SKT, 2-0 over SKT, and the 0-4 from SKT over their last 4, I just want to throw out some statistics around Maple, the man that we just interviewed there. 10 KDA, highest in the tournament. 81% kill participation, highest in the tournament. 34% damage share for his team, highest in the tournament.
Are you trying to make a point here?
Maybe, just a little bit.
I believe the next one will be highest in the tournament for mid laners.
The last one is for mid laners. It's 9.5 CS per minute, highest across all mid laners in the tournament. So just one piece of the puzzle for why Flash Wolves is playing so well, but just have to say kudos to him on his individual performance here at this tournament.
Yeah, I'm extremely happy for him. A lot of people forget, but Maple is still 18 years old. He's been playing at Worlds since S3. This guy's going to get better and better, and I really think he's going to create so many rivalries at MSI here down the line. We're seeing the first chapter in this story.
Absolutely. So with that in mind, let's dive into how Flash Wolves came away with another victory over SKT here, starting in the draft. Because actually, I know that we had some questions around what they picked up here in terms of having to sacrifice Maokai and Echo, 2 champions that you don't normally find on the same team.
Yeah, I felt like SKT came in with a plan that was basically ban Nidalee and Kindred, because we don't trust in Blank right now to take like a skill matchup versus Kasa. But then Flash Wolves decided to ban Kindred themselves, which was surprising to me. And they were setting up for that Alistar first pick. SKT knew that. They were basically saying, okay, if you first pick that, we get Maokai, the S-tier top laner we don't see very often. And of course, the remaining of the 3 good junglers in the grave. So that was a good start. Then Ezreal comes in the second rotation. That's where I feel like Flash Wolves are making a mistake. Because if you take Echo Azir instead, yeah, you show your soul laners, but you get, again, these S-tier picks for your team. Like, getting Ezreal, you just trade it for Lucian, like, has less value in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it objectively and you're like, my players can play anything, that would be the correct choice. But I think you have to draft around NL sometimes because, you know, Ezreal has such a higher value for the specific player, and that's maybe why they kind of sacrificed a little bit in the draft to draft it early for NL specifically.
But everyone should be able to play Lucian at the top level.
Should.
Even with the Ezreal.
This man's team is winning. This man's team is winning so many games.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to play Lucian so it's not a liability in draft.
Absolutely. But then given the fact that the Ezreal was drafted, this is where I want to come to you, Clement, on the fact that we saw losing CS numbers actually for the majority of the early portion of the game. And I think that's where, you know, if there's a takeaway for Flash Wolves in terms of a point of improvement or a fear moving forward in the tournament, is that they weren't necessarily winning the early game because they had gotten gimped in Champions Select in their ability to pressure.
I really do think that SKT drafted a better early game team composition. Like, the Azir is not going to be very mobile from the mid lane, so what you saw SKT doing a lot was going directly into the Flash Wolves jungle, and they were getting a lot of vision down on that. The thing is, really, the early game, I felt Flash Wolves was very, very far behind. They were facing a really good skirmish comp with no map control, but the Baron play really turned everything around.
Exactly. Everybody's going to look at SKT losing 4 games in a row, and heads are exploding, but remember how far ahead they were. They were playing according to game plan. It was that Baron steal, which was so crazy how they kept on the Baron. They went for the 50-50 with an Elise right in there with it. That right there is a team call. Everybody's going to be throwing a lot of shade at Blank, you know, for
not getting the smite or whatever.
As well. But this is also a team issue.
Right.
There's something with Blank and the rest of the team.
But still, I mean, for SKT, if we look at the game, they did basically what they were supposed to do in the early game. Again, you had Maokai lane, and Poppy's not the strongest laner anymore. The Ezreal lane into Lucian again, so SKT were winning.
The ganks.
Exactly, like they were winning those lanes. I do want to give some credit again to Sword Art and also Kasa, because actually they were the guys keeping Flash Wolves close or in the game, because tower dives, you know, good ganks coming in. And then, of course, later on, Sword Art, once they get the Baron, he's the man setting up the tower dives. Later in the game, the big team fights are starting.
Oh, man.
This man, when you first pick Alistar for him, he will win you the game.
Motto's the one who said that.
Yeah, but now I'm moving over to Sword Art. It's fine. We have
Sword Art's
two.
executing on it. Finally, or you want to jump in?
I just want to add on that it was Sword Art's flash combo into Karsa's flash cocoon. So those two working in synchrony is just, it was beautiful.
Clement, I want to give you the closing point as we did talk about maybe some of the weaknesses for Flash Wolves early in the game. Once that Baron play did happen, we saw how cleanly, again, this team can operate when they do have the advantages, when they do have that gold lead. I mean, from that point onward, closing out the game seemed, you know, fairly consistent and easy for them, if not taking a little bit of time.
Yeah, Flash Wolves is the best team at closing out games we've seen so far in the LMS for a long time. And the way they do it is exactly how they showcased it this game. They do a lot of tower dives with, especially the Elise pick. It's actually Karsa's most played this season, and he usually channels that tower diving synergy with Sword Art very well. They get the burst damage from Karsa, and they just try to, like, from NL, and they just try to push things in with the Zir. We've seen this play so many times, and I'm just glad they could showcase it here.
Game 4 is in the books. Flash Wolves sitting pretty at 4-2. SKT 2-0. Gonna be worried a bit after that one. We're going to go on cooldown, but the action continues after this with Counterlogic Gaming returning to the stage for a rematch against Supermassive. You're watching the 2016 Mid-Season Invitational. We'll be back in just a minute.
That Baron steal, though.
That Baron steal,
What
though.
kind of story would it be if SKT lost their 4th game in a row and gets 2-0'd by Flash Wolves in the group stage? That would push SKT to 2-4.
It's not going to be getting away from him. That Spider, a lot of damage dealt. And Sora goes in. Karsa comes up. Karsa's shut down. And they manage to find one back into this game.
Well, they're
so
here,
dangerous.
Karsa's
here. Oh, my Lord. He gets it. He stole the Baron away. And SKT starts coming apart at the seams. Nice, Otata. And he's taken out. That's a chance. But Maple sinks the divide. And MMD sends him flying back. Faker is trying to save the day. Chrono breaking back to stop Sword Art, but not enough. And NL chasing Blank all the way back into Fountain. Faker's pushed back. A double kill for NL. Flash Wolves have done it again.